Hello everyone and welcome back to SFF180 and Merry Christmas Eve. Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you for joining me. Amazing to think another year has come and gone. And frankly, it's been a rough one, for the world, that is. For fantasy and science fiction, it's been pretty strong, with several impressive titles by the genre's top talents as well as new faces, offering a wide and diverse array of top-notch storytelling. So now it's time to look ahead to 2018 to see what the field of fantasy fiction has in store for us. Turns out 2018 has such an impressive volume of exciting new SFF that one video covering the whole year simply wasn't going to work, which is why I recorded a whole second video for my anticipated science fiction list. So go and check that out when you're done watching this one, if you haven't already. More than anything else, the word of the day in fantasy is sequels. There are so many of them. There's a pretty solid guarantee that if you have a currently running favorite fantasy series, you will be getting a new installment this year. Granted, there are those series, and we all know which ones, with long-delayed sequels that never seem to end up on a release schedule as year after year after year goes by. But you know, I have to be honest, devoting mental energy to being angry and impatient about those few books when there is a plethora of fantastic reading coming your way from authors every bit as talented, if not more so, than those, is the biggest waste of time. Get out there and discover. After all, readers of fantastic fiction should be the most open-minded readers, the most eager for new experiences. Don't trap yourself in your little bubble of 2 or 3 favorite authors. Anyway, yes, there are quite a few sequels I'm excited for next year. But in my annual anticipated lists, I try to steer away from them with a few exceptions, mainly so that I can give some attention to underhyped standalone releases or new books by lesser-known writers that just look really cool. And so, without further delay, let's take a look at 18 promising fantasy releases coming our way in 2018. Remember, this list barely scratches the surface, and all release dates are tentative and subject to change without notice. We're front-loading the new year pretty heavily with 4 titles in January alone. On January the 9th, John Gwynne offers A Time of Dread, the launch of a new series titled Of Blood and Bone that looks to be the kind of kitchen sink story epic fantasy readers crave. Following on from Gwynne's 4-volume series The Faithful and the Fallen, set in the Celtic-inspired world of the Banished Lands, it's full of warrior angels and demonic black magic. January the 23rd brings us Markswoman from debut author Rati Mehrotra, described as a genre-bending mashup of epic fantasy and post-apocalyptic SF, in which an order of magical knife-wielding female assassins brings both peace and chaos to their world. Kyra is the youngest Markswoman in the Order of Kali, wielding a telepathic blade. I'm pretty much always going to be on board for badass lady assassins, so yeah, Markswoman opens a duology that is definitely going in my queue. 2 titles arrive on January the 30th to round out the month. Now, I tend to really enjoy fantasy novels with unconventional settings, and in the Midnight Front, David Mack offers us a story of dark magic in a World War II combat setting. On the eve of the war, Nazi sorcerers come gunning for Cade, but kill his family instead. His one path of vengeance is to become an apprentice of the Midnight Front, the Allies' top-secret magical warfare program, and become a sorcerer himself. Yeah, I know we open with a refrigerated family, but I'm hopeful the wartime milieu freshens up the theme of the corrupting nature of revenge. And also on the 30th, Melissa Albert's The Hazel Wood offers a chilling-sounding contemporary fantasy that sounds a bit like a spiritual descendant of the Robert Holdstock classic, Mythago Wood. 17-year-old Alice's grandmother, the reclusive author of a cult classic book of pitch-dark fairy tales, dies alone on her estate, the Hazel Wood, and then Alice's mother is stolen away by a figure who claims to come from the hinterland, the cruel supernatural world where her grandmother's stories are set. Alice's only lead is the message her mother left behind. Stay away from the hazelwood. If you thought January was busy, buckle up for February with 5 standout titles, 2 of which come out on the 6th. First, for those of you in the mood for a little more 1920s jazz-age deco-punk, Jasmine Gower's Moonshine is the story of Daisy Dell, a young woman living in an alternate Chicago called Soot City, where prohibition has targeted magic. Daisy possesses some forbidden magic inherited from her grandmother, and finds herself targeted by bounty hunters combing the city for magicians. Also, on February the 6th, riding a wave of heavy buzz and strong advance reviews, is Donielle Clayton's The Bells. The story sounds like it examines the exploitive nature of beauty as social capital. A group of young women in the city of Orleans, where everyone is born gray and ugly, are magically trained as bells with the power to grant anyone any kind of beauty they desire. With these powers naturally comes status, but soon our protagonist Camilla finds herself exposed to just how far wealth and entitlement can drive someone to a pathological pursuit of beauty at all costs. On February 13th, Tom Miller begins a new series with The Philosopher's Flight, which is said to follow in the tradition of such books as Uprooted, The Magicians, and of course, the Harry Potter series. Set during the First World War, it's about 18-year-old Robert Weeks, the only boy studying in a traditionally all-female discipline of indistinguishable from magic science. And it sounds like it works all the coming-of-age tropes into a story about war and political strife at home. Now, it does sound like it has some callbacks to Harry Potter that may be a bit too on the nose, but as I mentioned earlier, I do like period settings in fantasy, so I'm looking forward to seeing how well The Philosopher's Flight transports me to another time and place. Next up, I'm super excited about Mike Cole's Tor.com debut. Cole is, of course, responsible for the pulse-pounding Shadow Ops series of military action fantasies. And in his new book, The Armored Saint, he weaves a story of religious tyrants, arcane war machines, and underground resistance. In a world where any act of magic could open a portal to hell, the Order ensures that no wizard will live to summon devils, and will kill as many innocent people as they must to prevent that greater horror. After witnessing a horrendous slaughter, the village girl Heloise opposes the Order and risks bringing their wrath down upon herself, her family, and her village. On February 27th, 2 exceptional talents, Tobias Buckle and Hugo and Nebula Award winner Paolo Bacigalupi, team up for The Tangled Lands from Saga Press, a fantasy novel about a land crippled by the use of magic and a tyrant who's trying to rebuild an empire unless the people find a way to resist. The authors explore a shared world told in 4 parts where magic is forbidden and its use is rewarded with the headman's axe. A world of glittering memories and a desperate present where everyone uses a little magic and someone else always pays the price. You know, there are a lot of stories coming up about forbidden magic and tyrannical rulers and brave resistance fighters. A reflection of our troubled times, I guess? Anyway, wow, we are halfway through the list and only just now getting to March. 2 noteworthy releases on March the 6th. Children of Blood and Bone is the first installment in a YA West African fantasy by Tomi Adeyemi, about a girl who must fight against the monarchy to bring magic back to her people. Yes, it has one of those noun of noun and noun titles that are becoming a bit cliché in YA, but the story sounds fun, in which a young girl must stay one step ahead of the crown prince who, you guessed it, seeks to eradicate magic in his land once and for all. Also on March 6th, Stephen Brust offers his first standalone original fantasy novel in 2 decades, a snarky, irreverent tale of secret magic in the modern world. Good Guys is the story of a group of magical outliers and delinquents working minimum wage for a secretive foundation called the Foundation. They can teleport themselves thousands of miles, conjure shields that will stop bullets, and read information from the remnants of spells cast by others days before. And this is all okay, because they're working for the good guys, aren't they? On March 27th, Tor releases The Queens of Innis Lear, an epic fantasy inspired by King Lear, in which Tessa Grattan writes of a prophecy-obsessed king whose erratic rule has drained Innisleer of its wild magic, leaving behind a trail of barren crops and despondent subjects, rendering the kingdom vulnerable to its enemies. The king's 3 daughters are left vying for the crown and the chance to restore the realm's magic and defend its people. But whatever happens, Innisleer is a house divided. Now this sounds like it's gonna be some blood-stained tragedy, and I am here for it. Jumping ahead to June, Jacqueline Carey returns on the 12th with Starless, set in an epic world where gods live among us. Now this is one of those fat 600-page epic fantasy tomes full of dark gods rising and a hero driven to fulfill his destiny. And you know, if you read this genre at all, sometimes you're just in the mood for this kind of thing. On June 19th, Tor.com Publishing releases C.L. Polk's Witchmark, set in an original world reminiscent of Edwardian England in the shadow of a world war, where cabals of noble families use their unique magical gifts to control the fates of nations, while one young man seeks only to live a life of his own. On July 3rd, Sam Hawke's debut novel, City of Lies, is being pitched to fans of Naomi Novik and Robin Hobb. It's about a poisoner named Jovan, a young master of poisons and chemicals, trained to protect the Chancellor's family from treachery. Now, when the Chancellor succumbs to an unknown poison, and an army lays siege to the city, Jovan and his sister Kalina must protect the heir and save their city-state. But deceit and treachery lurk in every corner, and the ancient spirits of the land are rising and angry. Moving on to August the 7th, when Sherwood Smith releases the first volume of a new trilogy set in the world of her military epic fantasy series, Inda. A bunch of books that have really made the rounds here on BookTube SFF and met with a great deal of popularity. A Sword Named Truth returns readers to that world, and a tale of untested young rulers who must cooperate to protect their world from the magical threat of the mysterious kingdom of Norsunder. Now comes the book that I am both excited and anxious for in equal measure, above and beyond any other novel scheduled for next year. October 30th sees the release at long last of Seth Dickinson's The Monster Baru Cormorant, the sequel to a book I personally declared the best fantasy novel of 2015, and which one of my reviewing colleagues has described as the greatest novel he ever wanted to throw against a wall. The traitor Baru Cormorant took a flaying knife to readers' emotions as it deconstructed everything we've been taught to believe about heroism and justice and right and wrong, and I don't even want to guess where this one is going to go. Now, I don't know if my enthusiasm here makes me some kind of next-level masochist, but I guess I'm willing to take whatever flogging a writer cares to dish out if the storytelling is powerful enough to justify it. Finally, we wrap up the year with something that sounds perfectly astounding. Marlon James is a Jamaican writer who won the 2015 Man Booker Prize for his novel A Brief History of 7 Killings. He promptly announced that for his follow-up project, he was going to, quote, geek the fuck out and deliver an epic fantasy trilogy described as nothing less than an African Game of Thrones. James's Dark Star trilogy will draw heavily upon traditional African folklore and mythology, which is an amazingly rich and largely untapped vein of storytelling inspiration to draw from. And James has spent close to 2 years just on his world building and research. The autumn of 2018 is now the projected release window of the first volume, Black Leopard, Red Wolf. The story is a Rashomon scenario about a group of mercenaries hired by a slave trader to locate a kidnapped child. The search takes 9 years, at the end of which the kid is dead. But that's just the beginning, as each of the 3 novels presents a conflicting testimony from the POV of each of the 3 mercenaries, named the Tracker, the Moon Witch, and the Boy, about exactly what happened during that 9-year quest, and just how it all ended so badly. Each narrator will tell us the others are lying. Now, everything about this sounds like it's going to be intense and immersive, and I am all over it like jam on toast. And so there we have it. Those are 18 very promising and highly anticipated fantasy novels for the upcoming year. So let me know in the comments which of these looks most interesting and exciting to you. What are some other great fantasy novels that you want to see coming out next year, that you're looking forward to, but not science fiction. Please save those titles for the comment thread of my SF video. All right? Thanks very much, as always, for watching. Remember, hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends if you enjoyed watching, and please sub if you haven't done so. That is how SFF180 grows as a channel. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits in the Winx Army get little perks like getting to see these videos early and things like that. I want to thank those people for being really, really awesome with their donations. I want to thank you guys for being awesome viewers, and yeah, until I see you next time, have a wonderful, safe holiday season. Eat lots of food, get lots of presents, sleep late, and until I see you in the new year, happy reading.